Okay, so today we're going to talk about season three, episode 7, and the title is I See You. So, from previous episode, we know that Jesse got beaten by Hank, and Hank was in big trouble. But Jesse was sent to emergency room and he accepted the offer from Walter that they partner up again. So he wasn't going to press any charges against Hank. But Hank got assassinated by the twins. So he got multiple gunshot and probably someone called 911 to send him to the emergency room. So on that day, Jesse, got dressed and he sit on the wheelchair, and the nurse pushed the wheelchair for him, take him out to the side of the driveway so that he could got some fresh air there. And then he saw a ambulance, drove by. So you know, Jesse was like a kid, so he wanted to see what was going on and who was in the car, who was in the ambulance. He just doing this, he was just doing this for fun. So he came up to the ambulance and he spotted that the man who lying in the ambulance was Hank. So he was shocked. He never saw this coming, but he felt pretty excited and he just felt so relieved because he felt like he got the anger out of his system by seeing this. So on the other side, Walter was trying to explain to Gail that he needed to change to another lab assistant. So he told Gail that that was actually not his fault. And you are a fine chemist. That's what Walter said. And he said that he explained to him that they were just different. They had different rhythms between themselves. And he drew an analogy that himself was like a classical music and Gail was a jazz. So that was nothing wrong about jazz, but he needed to find another guy who was like classical music. And when came to the point like this, Jesse came in and he was psyched seeing all of this. So he acted like a monkey. So he was excited, he was screaming and shouting in the lab. So, you know, Gail thought that was just a joke, but he accepted this and he shook hands with Walter and left. So Walter told Jesse that he got something new to show him, some new techniques uh, to some to apply to these new equipments. So it seemed Walter had no idea about what was going on Hank. So Jesse told him about this, and Walter rushed to the hospital. And when he got there, all the families were already in the waiting room, and along with Hank's supervisor and Gomez. So the supervisor gave Hank an update about what was going on, and he said the tattoo on the assassins show the affiliations with the drug cartels. So he also brought up that they had an axe, and he said, drug cartel tend to be more dramatic. So Gomez told Hank that Hank took out both of them, even though he got nothing on him. He had no weapons. So he said that too loud, and Marie catch that. So Marie just lost her temper, and she couldn't believe why Hank did not have any weapons on him. So the supervisor explained to her that because of the assault charges, the assault case uh, on Jesse Pinkman, so he was suspended. That means he had to hand over his gun and badge. So, but Marie just couldn't accept this. So she shouted at both of the supervisor and Gomez and asked them to get out of the waiting room. So she even turned to Walter and told him that Walter was blamable because if he hadn't had any connection with Jesse, then Hank might not have got shot by the assassin. He would never, go to investigate that case and all. But Skylar tried to, set her mind at ease, and she said that don't blame to Walter. That was not his fault. So, Hank was still in surgery. They needed to wait for hours in the hospital. And I think that was, the next day morning, uh, the whole family went to the restaurant in the hospital, try to get some breakfast and keep waiting. So when they were eating the breakfast, some eggs, some toast, Marie saw something on the fork, and it was a water spot on the silverware. And she was just like, she was that kind of person who always complained about everything. And what happened to Hank just made that worse. So she complained about all the, you know, all the sanitations in that room, all the silverwares, all the tablewares. She said that these tablewares are were filthy. So she was just doing this because of her trade. So Walter, he tried to brought up some topics, and he said that one thing that he remembered the most in this hospital back to the time when he got his surgery was that morning. That morning when they're driving, when they're on the way to the hospital, they're driving on the street, driving on the road, driving up the road, the main road. They hit every green light of that road. And he also said that he he was he wasn't half a man. Uh, Hank was. So he tried to boost Marie's confidence that Hank finally would get away all of this. So they went back to the waiting room, and the doctor showed up, and the surgery had already finished, but he hadn't stabilized yet. So they needed to keep waiting. So Walter brought up that he could come back home. He could came back home. He could come back home and got some toothbrush or some towels or some foods for them. So when he was about to leave the hospital, he walked downstairs and a lot of police officers were in the lobby and they tried to got the update of Hank's condition. So Gomez even asked Walter to came up to to the ward of the assassins to see who he was or things like this. So when they got to the ward of one of the twins, that twins, catch water out of the corner of his eye. So he went completely irritated, like his facial expression was terrible, and the heartbeat accelerated. And even though he got amputated from the waist down, that one of the twins still tried to crawl on the ground to get to Walter. So Walter was shocked about this, and he thought it seemed this guy knew about him. So he tried to, uh, you know, go back to the past to remember something. So he made a call to Jesse and asked him about this. And he remembered that back to the day when they got kidnapped by Tuco. Tuco said someone came up from uh, Mexico to pick him up, and they finally remembered that was the man that he said was his twins. So Walter realized those two assassins were actually not come to Hank. Their target was Walter. So Walter's scared about all this. Then he was thinking, try to come up with some ways to address this issue. Then he got another call from Gus. It turned out Gus called him to check in with the current schedule. And because of Walter was out in the hospital, he couldn't do any manufacturing of the meth. So he lied to Gus that there were some technical issues uh, between the equipment, so he had to address that first so they can get back on track. So Gus, he actually knew what was going on, but he just pretended like uh, he accepted what Walter said at the moment. So in the evening, Gomez got a call from someone, and he was told that Gustavo was going to bring the food to feed all of the cops in the building. So Gus even went to the waiting room to comfort the family. So Walter in the room with the Gus, he just felt so uncomfortable about all this situation. So when Gus was about to leave, Walter uh, catch up. He he kept up. He catched up, and he asked him, "Was that some kind of message that he tried to send to him because of his appearance in this building?" And Gus said that he's simply doing this to support his community because he hid in plain sight, just like Walter did. So he need to do something, especially this kind of uh, event happened. So he got to do something because he always acted like he cared about everything about the community. So he got to show up in there. And he told Walter there was he didn't have to worry about the assassin because he was going to die. So Walter didn't catch that. He did not know what that meant. But after Gus leave the hospital, police officers, they, there was some, it seems there was something came up between the officers, and people crank up their volume, and everybody ran upstairs to the ward of the twin of the assassin. So Walter followed them. He came up there too. And when they got there, they saw doctors were trying to do some chest compression for that guy. But in the end, it was no help, and that guy died. So it turned out that was from Mike. Mike he added some ingredients or some medicines in the IV. So that was the order from Gus to get rid of this guy. So Gus went back to the house to the restaurant, and he received a call from Posa. Posa was a member of the cartel, and his house was surrounded by the SWAT team. So he questioned Gus that he was the one who behind all of this, and he said that he would get away with this because his brother was a police officer's chief, the chief of police officer. But he hadn't finished what he was about to say. The SWAT team raided in his house, and multiple gunshots coming from the phone, the speaker of the phone, and Gus knew that he got rid of another guy. So everything that he set up stay on the plane. So he was heading toward his final goal in the end. He was heading toward that. And in few episodes down the road, we will find out what he was up to. So in the midnight, uh, the doctor told the whole family that Hank had already stabilized, so they could come in to see him. So they went into the ward, and Hank was lying on the bed. And that was the final scene of the episode.